we are live. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. Got it right this time. So we are actually live on time on Friday night. And if this is your first time here, we get together and do this every week. I pick some tech articles that I think will be interesting to you guys, hopefully other tech heads like myself. And if there's a big event this week, I find some articles that we can discuss about that. We discuss things in the notes, in the comments, and anything you want to say there is fine. And we go over our articles. Anything you want to say about any of the articles is always good. If you're new here, please say hello. Let us know where you're from, and welcome. And here's your weekly reading from Eleanor. She said, "Hi everyone. Hope all are well and enjoy your weekend." She's the first one in. So, as I do every week, I'm going to show you the show notes for tonight's show. Now, if you click on this QR code, that'll take you directly to my website to tonight's show notes. But as I do every week, I'll go to the website and show you the articles, and we'll do a little preview of what we're going to talk about tonight. So, get this straight. So if you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, click on today's date, you'll get just the show notes for tonight's show. And we'll do our little preview as we do every week while we're here. So there was no big events that I'm aware of this week. As I say every week, if I'm wrong about that, let me know. So my first article, I said, it seems that the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra privacy display, I have mine right here, is pushing some buyers away. Some people are having lots of issues with the privacy display, and they're getting headaches, and I've had no issues. I am loving the phone. But we'll go over that in Phone Arena. It's going to be a heavy Phone Arena night as far as the article goes. Then, next one is also Phone Arena. I said, might Android Auto cause owners to return their S26 series phones? So this isn't just the S26 Ultra. I gather Android Auto is not working properly on some of the S26 phones. So we'll go over that to the point where I guess some people are actually returning them. So we'll see if, like I said, I've had no issues with my S26 Ultra, but I also don't use Android Auto normally anyway. So then another Android Automotive, not the same thing. I said, meanwhile, Google is partnering with others to update your car just as easily as your phone, and it's called Android Automotive OS. Again, Phone Arena. So we'll take a look at that. Then, sadly, remember we discussed back a couple of months ago that OnePlus might be going out of business, and then OnePlus came back and said, no, everything is normal, they're not going out of business. Well, more evidence this week. I just said, it's OnePlus showing more signs of shutting down Android Authority. As a matter of fact, Kevin in Tech Ninja, you should follow his channel. He did an entire video yesterday going over his history with OnePlus phones. He did a really good job of it, and talking about how sad he is, and we all are, that they're going to, it just seems like OnePlus is going, well, I have 3 OnePlus phones right over here. My OnePlus Open, I can't reach them, they're out of reach at the moment. But I have my OnePlus Open, which is my big folding phone, which you know I've loved ever since I've had it for 2.5 years now. What else do I have? I have 2 other OnePlus phones. Not thinking of, a OnePlus 13. And a lot of other people, even in this article, a lot of people think that may have been one of the best phones that OnePlus ever made. I picked it for my phone of the year last year. So we've got an Android Authority article, and he said too, but we'll take a look at that. Then I've given you a couple of articles of how T-Mobile's been forcing, as much as they can, their customers to use the T-Life app and not use anything else. They want everybody on that app, and eventually they want to shut down their stores and have all customers use the app. And it's been aggravating people. And I told you last week how they were trying to force people to do some things. Well, it turns out that T-Mobile's T-Life app may actually be pleasing some customers. So we'll see a little bit of the other side this time. Again, phone arena. And thank goodness the last article was Android Authority. Then, I've got an article from Wired. We've got a lot of news the last week or so that all foreign-made routers from the U.S. are going to be banned. So I said, are foreign-made routers really banned? Well, sort of. Got that on Wired. We'll take a look at that. And lastly, I just found this on ZDNet. Are you giving your chatbot too much personal info? And they're going to go over how not to do that, and I guess the 5 things you shouldn't be doing with your chatbot. So just interesting articles overall. So I did check to see if Ted was coming in. So far I've had nothing from him, but last week he just popped in on us. As I tell you every week, he's out in Dallas, so he's an hour behind me because I'm in Chattanooga. I'm on Eastern Time. So it's only 7:06 there. So often he's out and about because it's still light in Dallas. And he gets home like he did last week. He got in right after I started the show. I think I was on my second story. So it's always better when he comes in. So maybe we'll get blessed again and he'll come in. And of course, there's always the outside chance that Will or Mike may join us. That's always a miracle, but we're always very happy when they do. So, nothing else new in the comments. So we will start with our first story. And of course, as I always say, if it's just me, it'll be a quick night. So I said it seems that the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra privacy display is pushing some buyers away. So, to phone arena. We'll be going to phone arena a lot tonight. The Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra display is turning away customers. The problems with the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra are severe enough that many of you are reconsidering buying the phone at all. And as I've told you, I've had 0 issues with it. Tech Odyssey, he's made a few videos about the fact he's had no issues with it, but I guess some people are. This was written by Abdullah Asim, who's one of their really good writers, and published 2 days ago, so let's go into read review and get rid of these ads. So far, I am loving my S26 Ultra. Samsung introduced a novel new display this year for the Galaxy S26 Ultra. So technically, it is first generation software. One that can hide the contents of the screen from passers-by. And I have showed you examples how if you look from the side, if you turn it on, you can't read it from the side because it makes it dark. But if you're looking straight on, you see everything just fine. However, this new privacy display has had to make compromises elsewhere, something that might be costing the company sales as many customers have noticed a downgrade. Now, I totally disagree with that. I definitely do not think it's a downgrade, but this is the way he chose to phrase it. So, and these were just ads, so we'll skip by that. The Galaxy S26, Galaxy S26 Ultra display drives away customers. In a recent poll, we asked you whether the display of the Galaxy S26 Ultra has given you any problems. For me, 0. After all, the issue is prevalent enough that Samsung has reported to concerns about the phone and is even, get this, paying people to keep their S26 Ultra. I had no idea they were doing that. Most of you, a little over 36% of voters, this is kind of split between 3 different things. 36% of voters said that you were not planning on buying a Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra because of the display problem. So I would highly recommend it, but I don't have real sensitive eyes maybe. And here's Annie. Glad you are here. As always, you're so faithful. I appreciate it very much. Many customers, reviewers, and industry insiders have pointed out how the display appears less refined. I totally disagree with that. And hurts their eyes. Like I say, I don't have sensitive eyes. After a short while, which might be the reason that so many of you don't want to risk it. On the other hand, 33% of respondents claimed they weren't facing any issues with their Galaxy S26 Ultra. Count me in that group. However, that was followed up by 30% of you who have bought the phone saying that you were indeed having problems with the display or that it wasn't as good as you had expected. I haven't had that issue. I think it's great. It works great and the screen is great to me. What about you? Blah, blah, blah. One problem among many positives. The Galaxy S26 Ultra does many things right. Better photography, faster charging, and a novel new privacy display. And the problem with the display overall is a subjective one. That's right, because some of us are having no issues at all. For some customers, the trade-off might be worth the upgrades and the privacy features, so people that might still be bothered with it, not enough to not like the phone or keep the phone. But for others, it might be a complete deal breaker. However, how a phone's display affects the user is often very different for each person. While someone might get a headache using the Galaxy S26 Ultra, another person might think that it's the best display that they have ever seen on the phone in years. I would probably be very close to that category. First generation features are problematic, and that's always true. The issue with the display is why I keep saying that you shouldn't buy the foldable iPhone when it comes out later this year. That's probably going to cost a ton, too. First-generation products almost always have some sort of problem that quickly drains any excitement you might have had after the purchase, and that's always true for some people. I also expect Samsung to fix this problem with future Galaxy flagships, which also come with the privacy display, because we're all expecting this is going to spread to other phones, because a lot of people love the privacy display. Though, if such a thing turns out to be more trouble than it's worth, we might just see the privacy display canned before it could even get off the ground. So, like I said, I'm loving it. Seems like we're all 1/3 like it, 1/3 have no problems, 1/3 does have problems, and they're not buying it. So that's one story. My follow-up, this is a totally different issue, but it's the entire S26 series. Might Android Auto cause owners to return their S26 series phone? So not just the Ultra. Again, Phone Arena. Some Galaxy S26 owners are hitting a wall with Android Auto, and the clock is ticking. With return windows closing fast, users are running out of patience waiting for answers. Written by Joanna Romero, another one of their great writers, also published 2 days ago. So, and to read a view to get rid of the ads. You just dropped hundreds of dollars on one of Samsung's shiniest new phones, and now it won't connect to your car. That's exactly the situation a growing number of Galaxy S26 series owners are in right now, and it's getting loud. Galaxy S26 owners are reporting a frustrating Android Auto failure. Android Auto is what lets you mirror your phone's navigation, music, and calls onto your car's screen, and for a lot of Android users, it's one of the main reasons they stick with the platform. Yeah, now I can connect my phone to my car. Now I drive an old 2016 Corolla, but I don't have to use Android Auto to do it. However, according to a new report, users across the Galaxy S26 series are seeing a maddening pattern when Android Auto connects, drops, reconnects, then drops again. I can see where that would get very aggravating very quick. What stings most is that the exact same setup worked fine on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. The frustration has spilled onto Reddit, where some owners say they're seriously considering returning their phones before the 15-day window closes. Clearing the cache and swapping cables hasn't helped anyone. That's pretty sad. As for the cause, one theory points to Samsung's advanced protection feature a security layer designed to block potentially harmful connections, interfering with the Android Auto handshake, which I guess that must be new in the Galaxy S26 series. Neither Google nor Samsung has officially acknowledged the bug, and the fixes being suggested on Samsung or Google's help forums aren't landing. Now keep in mind, the new advanced protection feature is Samsung, but Android Auto is Google, so a clash there somewhere. So, the Galaxy S26 Plus is here. Oh no, there's more ads, sorry. This is bigger than a minor connectivity hiccup. For daily drivers, losing Android Auto means losing navigation, hands-free calls, and music apps behind the wheel. See, I don't have that problem because I just connect my phones direct to my car, which touches on both convenience and safety. The fact that people are ready to return a flagship phone over this makes the stakes pretty clear. It's also worth noting that this isn't Samsung's first run-in with Android Auto issues. Similar complaints surfaced with the S24 and S25, I didn't have either, which doesn't suggest a quick turnaround. If they're having this year after year, that means there's a problem built in somewhere between them and Google, I guess. If advanced protection really is the culprit, untangling a conflict between Samsung's security choices and Google's system could take some time. Yeah, I can see that. Worth waiting before you buy? Personally, I think Samsung needs to move fast on this one, I agree. Especially given what people are paying for the S26 Ultra. I totally agree there. Flagship pricing and broken car connectivity is not a combination anyone should have to accept. If you already own one and are dealing with this, keep tabs on Samsung's community forums and consider testing whether toggling advanced protection makes any difference in the meantime. Yeah, that might help. So, like I said, no issues with mine, but I don't use Android Auto at all, really. So, feel sorry for those who are having these issues, and I hope Samsung and Google together figure it out pretty quick. All right, nothing new in the comments, so we will continue on. I'll let you know if Ted happens to pop in. Now, a week before last, he was sitting there a while before I noticed him. Last week, I caught him as soon as he came in. So let's hope that happens again if he does come in. So that's issues that people are having with the S26 Ultra and the S26 series. But a totally different story. Meanwhile, Google is partnering with others to update your car just as easily as your phone. And this is pretty interesting. Again, phone arena. Google just declared war on your car's clunky software. And here's what it means for you. Basically, they're trying to get things uniform. A massive Android expansion aims to fix the auto industry's biggest tech headaches, again by Joanna Romero. This is from 3 days ago. Into reader view we go. Remember the days when a car was just a steering wheel, an accelerator, and a simple radio? Those are the good old days, but they will be a distant memory sooner rather than later. Today, most modern vehicles can be giant computers on wheels, and the software that is most widely used to run them is going to receive a major upgrade, which could change your daily commute, taking the screen out of the equation. So they're working with Renault Group. That's one group that I know they're working with. According to a new report, Google is expanding its popular car interface beyond the center console display screen. Pardon me. Android Automotive OS for software-defined vehicles, or AAOS SDV for short, that's short, is being announced. Today, car manufacturers face a major problem: fragmented software, and that is because they've got to do all different things for all different phone makers. That's got to be a real pain, and expensive too. They have to patch together different programs from different manufacturers, which takes a lot of time and causes them to be slow to to adopt new features into their vehicles. Sure, it's expensive for car makers. The new system promises a shared open platform designed specifically for non-safety features of a car. As a result, car manufacturers can save time building the basics and focus on building useful features for consumers. Your next car will feel like a phone. The significance of this is huge, as it directly relates to the amount of time it takes to upgrade your car to new features. Instead of waiting forever for a car manufacturer to figure out their own code, they can use this new system to send new features to your car over the air. We are talking about cohesive features like proactive maintenance reminders and a voice assistant that actually understands your car. This puts them in a rather advantageous position compared to other companies that are also trying to integrate this technology into vehicle systems. If you are a person who wants to transition from your living room to your car to be as smooth as possible, this upgrade is for you. Big companies like Renault Group and Qualcomm are already getting started with this technology. Buckling up for the future. I must say that I am rather excited about this technology and how it might play out in the real world in consumer-level vehicles. The idea of a vehicle that updates as smoothly as a smartphone is rather appealing to me, and when it comes time to upgrade, I would definitely consider getting a car that has this tech. It seems like a perfect fit for people who use their smart devices to get things done during the day. Well, hopefully this spreads to a lot of manufacturers and it becomes universal. My only concern about this technology is how much the car companies might clutter this system with their clunky menus. That's true, they could. However, this open source release is expected to happen later this year, so we will be able to see how this system runs very soon. So, sounds like they're working their way towards something universal, which is, good for all of us consumers. So we'll see. Let me get a swig of my green tea. And we will continue on. Like I said, it's going to be quick as long as it's just me. All right, this is our sad story for the week. Is OnePlus showing more signs of shutting down? Got this story on Android Authority. I've loved OnePlus since the beginning, but its death now feels inevitable. This might really be the end. This is written by Joe Maring, who's one of their terrific writers, on March 25th. And when he starts talking about the first OnePlus, I remember Joe Maring was a teenager in high school when they started. He was already a pretty good writer then. He's gotten much better as the years have gone by. So, let's go into review, drop these ads. OnePlus, one of the most unique and disruptive Android brands of the past decade, is in dire straits. Of course, I can't see the word dire straits without thinking of money for nothing, but that's my old musician's mind. In January, a report claimed that OnePlus was being completely dismantled. I gave you that story at the time. OnePlus quickly denied it, indicating that business was as usual. Fast forward to March 23rd, so 4 days ago, and the new report says that OnePlus will be ceasing operations in, get this, select global markets. So they're intentionally not saying where. Everything I've seen, and even on Tech Ninja's video on it, it seems like they're going to keep things normal in China and nowhere else. That's what it seems like. Just 1 day later, a OnePlus executive who previously squashed the initial shutdown rumors officially left the company. Yeah, the guy who was in charge of India was the guy who said back in January, no, things are normal, we're not shutting down. Well, he quit. He quit 2 days ago, I think. While reports of OnePlus's demise are still unverified, it's clear that something big is happening within the company, something not good. As a longtime OnePlus fan who wants to see it succeed, the idea of OnePlus is OnePlus dying is hard to contend with. I agree. But simultaneously, it also feels inevitable. OnePlus in its prime, now here's the history, and this is a good job he does here. When the OnePlus was released in 2014, he was in high school then, it felt like a phone that shouldn't exist. To get an Android phone with flagship-grade specs, such a unique design, and the perks of Peak's cyanogen mod, all for just $300, sounded too good to be true. While there were issues with the invite system, a lot of people hated that invite system. I didn't like it at all. And questionable marketing campaigns, the OnePlus One was as real as it got, and it was magnificent. Yes, it was. I didn't have one. I think with the OnePlus 3T, I think was the first one I got. As someone who bought a OnePlus One in August 2014 and spent months active on OnePlus's forums before then, OnePlus fans do great on the forums, and OnePlus always listened to the fans. The phone was unlike anything else I had experienced in the Android world. It brought into question whether you really needed to spend hundreds of dollars more on a flagship Samsung or LG phone. It also put all other budget Android handsets of the time to shame, because they gave you much more for your money. OnePlus had cracked a value proposition that no other company had gotten close to offering, and the entire smartphone landscape was better for it. That's very true. While OnePlus would never fully recapture the lightning in a bottle it struck with the OnePlus One, the company did a good job building on its formula of enthusiast Android phones that cost far less than they probably should. As a company just starting out, they did a great job with the pricing and giving you all the features they did. For all the issues the OnePlus 2 had, improvements like its metal frame, a greatly improved display, and its USB-C port, one of the first Android phones with it, were meaningful upgrades. It also introduced the iconic alert slider, which we all loved, which defined OnePlus phones until last year. Thank God the OnePlus 13 still has it. It seemed like everything with OnePlus was going right. The OnePlus 3 and OnePlus 3T, that's where I started, marked a turning point for OnePlus, but in a good way. The transition to metal unibody designs lacked the identity of the first two phones, but the build quality and craftsmanship easily made up for that. Yes, they were built extremely well. Display quality and performance continued to be OnePlus's strong suits, and the company's Oxygen OS software, which debuted on the OnePlus 2, really came into its own with the 3 and 3T. Everybody liked their software. These were also the first two phones to spur OnePlus's interest in fast wired charging, and to this day they still charge faster than any other phones. Another staple of modern OnePlus handsets. More importantly, OnePlus's prices continued to undercut the competition by a significant margin, and the removal of the invite system meant it was easier than ever to buy a OnePlus phone. It seemed like everything was going right when everything started going wrong. I remember watching the OnePlus 5 launch event in June 2017 and having a bad feeling in my gut. OnePlus was still delivering on performance, charging, and other high-end specs as it had for years, but something about the phone felt off. Maybe it was the shameless iPhone 7 Plus-like design. They never made any bones about the fact that they didn't mind copying from iPhone. Maybe it was OnePlus's decision to focus so much on questionable camera upgrades. Maybe it was the creeping starting price. It crept up a little bit year by year, which now had risen to $479, which is a long way from the $300 they started at. The OnePlus 5 was still very well received, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that this was no longer the same OnePlus we had grown used to. Perhaps that feeling was premature because for a while, OnePlus continued to impress. That's very true. The OnePlus 5T, I had that too, slimmed its display bezels to a seriously impressive degree. The OnePlus 6 debuted a gorgeous new glass design, and the OnePlus 6T's arrival on T-Mobile in the United States meant OnePlus phones were available to a much wider audience than ever before. Yeah, they had that deal with T-Mobile, and you could finally walk into a store and get one, and I got the 6T also. Then there was the OnePlus 7 Pro, and that was a phone a lot of people loved, including me. A phone which I'd happily argue was the culmination of OnePlus at its very best, I agree. It was one of the first major Android phones with a 90 hertz display. This is at a time when everybody else had 60. Refresh rate. Its pop-up selfie camera remains an impressive mechanical feat. Yeah, that was awesome. When you take that phone out to photograph and people saw that camera just pop up, people were just amazed. The curved display with barely there bezels, outstanding glass metal construction, and excellent performance and software made the OnePlus 7 Pro a truly special smartphone. The $669, see, it's going up again, but that was worth it though. Starting price marked another all-time high price tag for a OnePlus phone, but with the OnePlus 7 Pro, the extra dollars were justified. Completely agree. This felt like the phone OnePlus had been working toward since the beginning, and it's a phone I still remember very fondly all these years later. Me too. This all sounds pretty good, so where exactly did things go wrong? I remember after that I didn't like the next 4 or 5 OnePlus phones, and then when the OnePlus 12 came out, I started falling in love with them again. And I still have my OnePlus 12 and OnePlus 13. The OnePlus 7 Pro was released in May 2019. In August 2020, OnePlus CEO Pete Lau became Senior VP of O+, an investing group overseeing OnePlus, Oppo, and Realme at the time, and they're all owned by BBK. Just 2 months later, in October 2020, OnePlus co-founder Carl Pei left OnePlus to start Nothing, yeah, and I have 2 Nothing phones right now also. OnePlus's ties to Oppo and its parent company BBK had been a poorly kept secret for years, but it was in 2021 that the veil was completely removed. In January of that year, OnePlus and Oppo merged their 2 R&D teams to better maximize resources. In June, Lau said that OnePlus would further integrate into Oppo, and that's what happened. One was bound to take over the other. And in September, OnePlus announced it was working on a unified code base to merge Oxygen OS and Oppo's Color OS. A lot of people don't like Color or didn't like Color OS. How would the deepening Oppo relationship affect OnePlus? Not well. Naturally, this created significant concern about what would become of OnePlus, as it should have. After years of being an enthusiast brand that was largely its own thing, how would this deepening relationship with Oppo affect the OnePlus that we had grown to know and love? As it turns out, not very well. Phones like the OnePlus 8, OnePlus 9, those I skipped, and OnePlus 10, I skipped all 3 of those, released during this time were far from complete failures, but they also lacked the identity of the OnePlus of year. They had lost something, and it was very obvious. The OnePlus 8 Pro completely turned OnePlus's pricing strategy on its head with an $899 starting price, so all the way up to $900 now. The OnePlus 10T shipped without an alert slider. That made a lot of people upset. And unsurprisingly, Oxygen OS began morphing into a Color OS copycat, turning what used to be an excellent Android skin into a shell of its former self. Pardon me. OnePlus has had big wins since the deepened ties with Oppo, but nothing sustainable. Now, here's where I'm going to end up agreeing with him a lot. The OnePlus Open was an outstanding foldable that never got a successor. That's still my big folding phone, and I still love it. Most people that have it still do. The OnePlus 13 won Android Authority's title for the best phone of 2025, also mine, followed by a supremely disappointing OnePlus 15. Yeah, I skipped the OnePlus 15 because if you have the OnePlus 13, the OnePlus 15 was definitely not an upgrade. The OnePlus 13 was probably the best phone they ever made. And when it looked like Oxygen OS was finally getting back into a good place, OnePlus ruined it with Oxygen OS 16. It's not that OnePlus has been a free fall of anything of the sort since its oppofication. I love that. But there's been a continued series of poor decisions that have put OnePlus in a difficult position. Its phones are more expensive than ever, specs are being downgraded with new models, and the software has never been more polarizing. What future does OnePlus have left? Not much, I don't think. Whether OnePlus's shortcomings are a result of Oppo deliberately sabotaging the brand or not, that doesn't really matter. All that matters now is where OnePlus goes from here, and where it's going sure does look like the end of OnePlus as we know it. That's true. In addition to the shutdown reports mentioned at the beginning of this article, in the middle of my writing this on March 24th, so 3 days ago, 9 to 5 Google published its own report claiming that OnePlus will wind down operations in certain regions, including vast portions of Europe. I think that includes the United States in those certain regions. Most notably, it could happen as early as this April, so stay tuned, because obviously we're going to hear something soon. The outcome for OnePlus is pretty bleak. That leaves us with 3 reports from 3 independent sources claiming that OnePlus is in serious trouble. Even with OnePlus's denial of the original Android headlines report from January, it's hard to imagine a positive outcome from any of this. OnePlus is backed into a corner. Its latest smartphones have missed the mark, except for the OnePlus 13, and Oppo hasn't done the company any favors. That's also to say nothing of the challenges OnePlus has faced due to the global economy and the RAM crisis. Yeah, I think the RAM crisis, had everything gotten so expensive, probably was the last straw. When you combine that with multiple reports of OnePlus shutting down significant parts of its business, it's pretty damn bleak. I don't want OnePlus to die, me neither, but unless something big changes, its death feels inevitable. So, very well written article. I agree with everything that he said. So this is very sad for all of us, but I guess in a few weeks, in April, we'll hear something more definite. Sure sounds like it anyway. Okay, on to T-Life. So after giving you weeks of T-Mobile customers, and myself and Elda have been T-Mobile customers for like 12 and a half years now. We haven't had to use the T-Life app much, so we haven't had the complaints, but a lot of people have been hating it. I've been reporting on it, and I reported last week how they were trying to force people to give more information about themselves. This one is the other way. It turns out that T-Mobile's T-Life app may actually be pleasing some customers. Back to Phone Arena. Risky T-Mobile bet is paying off despite customer backlash, and there's been plenty of that. Turns out T-Life is better than most other carrier apps. Who knew? So into read review. Oh, and this is by Anand Hamid again. Into read review. Since the launch of T-Mobile's T-Life app in 2024, its feature set has expanded to make it indispensable for customers. AT&T followed suit with a similar app this month, while Verizon's My Verizon app was overhauled last year. With the increasing emphasis on apps, suggests a shift away from an employee-centric service model, a new study shows that customers are nowhere near as skeptical of apps as online chatter would have you believe. Yeah, up to now you've heard nothing but bad things. Well, here's the good stuff. Streamlining the digital experience. With more telecom customers managing their accounts online, apps and websites have become the primary platform for account activity. I guess you have to expect that. Apps have eclipsed websites as the preferred interface, suggests a new J.D. Power report. This preference stems from speed and ease of use, bolstered by features such as biometric login. Yeah, so it's quicker and easier to use an app, I guess, than a website. Conversely, websites require manual credentials, which introduces friction. Websites also tend to be slower and are often plagued by maintenance issues. To assess customer satisfaction with the digital experience offered by Internet service providers and carriers, J.D. Power surveyed 12,082 customers between December 2025 to January 2026. The evaluation was based on design, system performance, tools, capabilities, and information. On a 1,000-point scale, Internet companies and wireless carriers averaged scores of 659 and 654, respectively. Among broadband providers, app login satisfaction was 689, 42 points higher than website login satisfaction. So again, the apps are more popular. Among mobile service providers, app login satisfaction averaged 681, 38 points higher than website login satisfaction. The study found that there are inconsistencies in the digital experience offered by the telecom industry across channels. While it's common for mobile apps to provide a better experience than websites in many industries, the gap is wider in the telecom sector. Telecom providers have an opportunity to increase the functionality and usability of their websites, especially for complex tasks such as updating account information. The study notes that top-rated companies ensured visibility and easy navigation for account and billing information. Among Internet providers, T-Mobile topped the customer satisfaction ranking with 695 points, followed by AT&T 675 and Verizon 669. Mint Mobile scored highest among wireless chains, 704. Spectrum Mobile secured the second spot, 678, while both Metro by T-Mobile and T-Mobile tied for third place. So T-Mobile's doing pretty good, I guess. Mobile apps continue to set the standard for ease of use and satisfaction among telecom customers. Kristen Coffin, Digital Solutions Analyst at J.D. Power, March 2026. Another swig of green tea. And here's one nobody expected. T-Life isn't that bad after all. Oh, after all, question mark. No one has been pushing its app as aggressively as T-Mobile, that's true, leading to accusations of forced usage, also true, which I reported on last week. While that contributed to the 100 million installs T-Mobile boasts, high customer satisfaction ratings suggest T-Life is successfully simplifying account management and delivering on the company's vision. So hopefully everybody comes out happy. Of course, some might prefer AT&T's approach, which involves letting customers decide whether they want to use the app or leave matters to the store rep. Yeah, T-Mobile is trying not to give you that option. Regardless, most customers will not want to visit a store for every single issue, which means everyone is going to be using an app at some point. While AT&T and Verizon also scored highly among internet service providers, T-Mobile also landed third place among carriers, meaning it's pretty much nailing it. Hard at work. Just this month, T-Mobile announced that it had made T-Life faster by improving loading times and reducing the number of steps it took to complete tasks. Customers have often complained that the app is laggy, that's true, and T-Mobile is trying to address that by ensuring there are fewer hiccups. Since AT&T's new app is not even a month old, we expect it to get better with time as well. Overall, though, customers desire greater fluidity and reliability when it comes to carrier apps. That's particularly essential for T-Mobile, which insists that customers use its app for everything from bill payment to upgrades. So, some people, it seems, are kind of happy with the T-Mobile T-Life app. Who knew? Okay, on we go. So there's been a bunch of stories from last week to this week about foreign routers being banned in the U.S. So I just said, are foreign-made routers really banned? Well, sort of. It's kind of confusing, but hopefully Wired, which is where I got this from, will give us the lowdown here. Everything you need to know about the foreign-made router ban in the U.S. The FCC just banned the sale of new consumer-grade, that's key, Wi-Fi routers manufactured outside the U.S. Here's what it means for you. And let's see, this was published by Simon Hill 3 days ago. So it's going to read it for you. The Federal Communications Commission has banned new consumer internet routers manufactured outside the U.S., citing national security concerns. The ban doesn't affect any routers already in American homes or currently on sale in the U.S., but all new routers aimed at the consumer market will need to be approved. So if you've already got one, don't worry about it. While the headline is that foreign-made consumer routers are banned, manufacturers can apply for exemptions. Yeah, so that, again, it's going to get very muddled here. There's no need to throw out your router, and you'll still find plenty of mesh systems on store shelves. So it's in the stores already. You can just go buy it. Don't have to worry about it. But what does this mean for you? Why are foreign-made routers banned? Malicious actors have exploited security apps and foreign-made routers to attack American households, disrupt networks, enable espionage, and facilitate intellectual property theft, the FCC wrote. Foreign-made routers were also involved in the Volt, Flax, and Salt Typhoon cyber attacks. I remember that one, targeting vital U.S. infrastructure. Foreign-made consumer routers were added to the covered list, which details equipment and services deemed to pose an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. Bogdan Botezatu, director of threat research at cybersecurity firm Bitdefender, says this ban is a step to harden the cybersecurity readiness of U.S. households given ongoing geopolitical tensions. And we've certainly got those. Consumer routers sit at the edge of every home network, which makes them an attractive target and a strategic risk if compromised at scale, he says. Asked whether he thinks the risk is real, Bodazatu says yes, though there's no easy way to prove intent. Internet of Things devices, including routers, are a weak point across the Internet. Which routers are banned? Here's where it gets even more confusing. The ban only affects the sale of new Wi-Fi routers aimed at consumer households. So they keep saying consumer households, so I'm like, so if it's business, it's okay? I don't get that, or at least I find it confusing. The ban does not apply to existing FCC-approved routers on sale in the U.S. Like I said, if it's here already, don't worry about it. Previously purchased routers already in U.S. homes across the country are also fine and are not part of the ban, according to the FCC's fact. These routers can continue to be sold, used, and updated with new firmware. Any new router manufactured outside the U.S. now requires FCC approval before it can be imported, marketed, or sold in the U.S. This includes routers from U.S. companies that are manufactured overseas, which is the vast majority of the market right now. That's true. What does foreign-made mean? Again, it gets muddy or murky. This is decidedly murky, exactly. The ban is concerned with consumer-grade, again, making it even fuzzier, routers, and could include any that are designed or manufactured outside the U.S. or manufactured by companies that are not completely U.S.-owned and operated. So, very confusing. All the major players in the market, including Netgear, TP-Link, Asus, Amazon's Eero, Google Nest, Synology, Linksys, and Ubiquiti, fall under the definition, so practically everybody. As do, now get this, as do most, if not all, again, leaving themselves some wiggle room, of the routers supplied by Internet service providers in the U.S. Just like the recent federal drone ban, and I'd say the drone ban was a lot more plain in what they were saying. The router ban only applies to new routers, but manufacturers can apply for conditional approval, so they might approve them anyway, from the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. Applications now, so you've got 3 different ways for people to get paid off here in 3 different organizations. That's how I see it. Applications must include details about ownership, board membership, and country of origin for components, IP ownership, design, assembly, and firmware, among other things. The final selection requests details of the applicant's U.S. manufacturing and onshoring plan, so there's a clear push to persuade companies to commit to making their routers in the U.S. No routers or manufacturers have been granted a conditional approval so far, but as the process gets underway, we expect approvals to be granted in a timely manner, an FCC spokesperson tells Wired. Now, my mind says that means who's going to get paid when. What about foreign-made components? Now, again, making it fussier. Well, the FCC provides some clarification in its fact that listen to this. Covered here means banned. Well, why don't they just say banned? I think they're intentionally making it murky. Non-covered devices do not become covered simply because they contain a covered component part unless the covered component part is a modular transmitter under the FCC rules. Tell me if you understand that, because I don't. It says, therefore, a router produced in the United States is not considered covered equipment solely because it contains one or more foreign-made components. They're making this as fuzzy as they can possibly make it. Manufacturers importing components from China but assembling them in the U.S. will presumably be okay, though it's far from clear. They left themselves plenty of wiggle room to knock down anything they want to knock down. Applicants will need to be able to have sufficient evidence that the routers were not produced in a foreign country to make this certification, but there is no specific documentation or evidence required. Again, leaving it as murky and as open-ended as they can, according to the FCC. Let's look at the big 3 U.S. router brands and see how they're affected. Will TP-Link be banned? Since all of its routers are made overseas, TP-Link will have to apply for conditional approval or spin up manufacturing in the U.S. to sell any new routers. Estimates vary, but TP-Link's U.S. consumer router market share is somewhere around 35%, with Netgear and Asus accounting for another 25% or so. The U.S. Commerce, Defense, and Justice Departments have reportedly been investigating and considering a ban on TP-Link routers for more than a year. Yeah, we've had stories going back about a year about TP-Link routers over concerns about the company's links to China. No ban has been enacted until now, but Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued TP-Link in February, claiming the company allows the Chinese Communist Party to access American consumers' devices. Detractors have also criticized perceived predatory pricing, claiming TP-Link flooded the U.S. market with a wide range of affordable routers to establish dominance. TP-Link has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and claims it has divested from its Chinese roots and is now headquartered in the U.S. with the bulk of manufacturing in Vietnam. TP-Link's co-founder and CEO, Jeffrey Chow, recently applied for permanent U.S. residency through President Trump's Gold Card program. Well, you know he's going to be approved if he's on Trump's good side, according to the Times of India. Virtually all routers are made outside of the United States, including those produced by U.S.-based companies like TP-Link, which manufactures its products in Vietnam. A spokesperson from TP-Link tells Wired, it appears that the entire router industry will be impacted by the FCC's announcement concerning new devices not previously authorized by the FCC. TP-Link is a privately owned company and not publicly listed on any stock exchange. That surprised me. Chow and his wife Hillary are listed as the company's sole owners, so I think that's probably in their favor, especially if they become U.S. citizens. Will Netgear be banned? While it is a U.S.-founded and headquartered company, Netgear's routers are manufactured abroad, mostly in Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Taiwan, so we'll have to apply for conditional approval. The company has moved away from China in recent years. Netgear has been lobbying the government on cybersecurity and strategic competition with China. We commend the administration and the FCC for their action toward a safer digital future for Americans, a Netgear spokesperson tells Wired. Home routers and mesh systems are critical to national security and consumer protection, and today's decision is a step forward. So it sounds like they're expecting to be approved a lot in the U.S. Netgear is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, mostly owned by institutional investors, including BlackRock and Vanguard. BlackRock and Vanguard own most big companies in the world. The company's stock rose on news of the ban, suggesting that many investors believe it won't be hit too hard. Yeah, if BlackRock and Vanguard have any say in it, yeah, they'll be just fine. Will ASUS be banned? ASUS primarily makes its routers in Taiwan, though it has production facilities in China and works with several third-party manufacturers. Recent tariff pressures led the company to branch out to Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Mexico, and the Czech Republic. That one surprised me. But the bulk of its routers still come from Taiwan or China. ASUS will have to apply for conditional approval to sell new routers. The company did not respond to Wired's request for comment. ASUS is listed on the Taiwanese stock exchange and is mostly owned by public shareholders. The ban doesn't appear to have impacted its stock price. Are any routers manufactured in the U.S.? I don't think, oh yes there is. The only routers I know that are manufactured in the U.S. are some Starlink Wi-Fi routers, which are primarily made in Texas. Starlink is part of Elon Musk's SpaceX company, but many of the components in these routers come from East Asia. Botazatu says what matters more than geography is the security model behind the product. Companies that invest in long-term firmware support, vulnerability management, and built-in protection layers offer stronger security. How will the router ban impact ordinary folks? It's not entirely clear, but it probably won't have a huge immediate impact. Yeah, because most of us have our routers and they're unaffected, and those in the stores are already unaffected. Pardon me. There's already a wide range of Wi-Fi 7 routers and mesh systems on the market that will continue to be sold, that they enable speeds well in excess of what most people need at home. Whether companies spin up manufacturing in the U.S. or find other ways to satisfy government agencies that they're aware of our security risks, the result is likely to be higher prices for consumers. Well, yeah. This ruling has the potential to significantly disrupt the U.S. consumer router market. Yeah, but I think that's going to be a while down the road. Brandon Butler, a research manager of network infrastructure and services at IDC, tells Wired. So I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom, but you get the idea. The ban is there, but it's a very confusing ban, and they can approve and not approve anybody they want. That's what it boils down to. But it's going to be a while before any of us are affected in our own home systems, because the stuff is already in the stores. They're fine. So, just interesting, but it's a good example of how they make it as murky as they can to give themselves as much wiggle room as they want. Okay, one more story. Are you giving your chatbot too much personal info? I found this on ZDNet, just another interesting article I found. Probably not going to read it all, but you'll get the idea. That I use Gemini a lot. Eleanor uses ChatGPT a lot, but this is for all of us who use these things. Stop telling AI your secrets. 5 reasons why and what to do if you already overshared. Your casual conversations with chatbots could have some major privacy implications. Written by Erin Carson 2 days ago. And she makes some good points, and points I hadn't even thought about, but she's probably right. Let's drop into read review. How personal do you get with your chatbot? Does it interpret your lab results, help you sort out your finances, offer advice at 2 a.m. when your worries are particularly existential? Without thinking about it too deeply, you might be revealing a whole trove of personal information about yourself, and that could be a problem. At a time when people are increasingly integrating chatbots into their everyday lives, and most of us are, I guess, researchers are trying to work out the implications of feeding AI personal information. Also, 43% of workers say they've shared sensitive information with AI. We probably all have, just looking up stuff, including financial and client data. By now, you've likely heard stories of people forging romantic relationships with chatbots. Yes, I have. Or using them as life coaches and therapists. Yeah, and therapists keep telling people, don't do that. In fact, just over half of U.S. adults use large language models. Yeah, we do. According to a 2025 study from Elon University. What's more, chatbots are designed to be friendly and keep people chatting and talking about themselves. The ultimate problem is that you just can't control where the information goes. That's true. And it could leak out in ways that you just don't anticipate, said Jennifer King, Privacy and Data Policy Fellow at Stanford Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. And that makes sense. I wouldn't have thought about that. But yeah, they could be sending this data or selling it to people. How would you know? As abstract as that theory may sound, researchers like King say it's worth considering exactly what you're telling chatbots and what repercussions that info might have in the future, because, yeah, it's something to think about. Here are 6 things you should know about getting too personal with a chatbot. 1, memorization, prediction, surveillance. So what's the harm in giving a chatbot sensitive information about yourself? Yeah, you don't know where it's going. No one is sure exactly, and that's the issue. One question researchers have is whether models memorize information, and because I think like a developer programmer, with this, when they're saying memorize that, is it storing the information somewhere that it has access to? That equates to memorizing it. If so, whether that information can be coaxed back out verbatim or near verbatim. Memorization is actually one of the core complaints in the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI. That's been ongoing for years now. OpenAI, in a statement from 2024, said regurgitation is a rare bug it's trying to eliminate. Yeah. Because, yeah, that whole regurgitation thing, it's a kind of a memorization thing. All right, I'm not going to read everything in the article, but I'm going to give you the points that she raises. So let's go on to the next one. So, but you see the point. We don't know where this stuff is going and who may be getting it. Number 2, your settings might be too lax. Though platform settings can often be labyrinth, it's worth taking the time to understand your options. Some chatbots like Claude and ChatGPT offer private chats. If you use Claude's incognito chat, your conversation will not be saved to your chat history, you hope, or used for training. These chats, though, are not fixed settings. The same applies to ChatGPT's temporary chats. Again, you don't know what ChatGPT did. You're dealing with Sam Altman. He'd do anything for money. There may be other options in the platforms to delete chat histories or opt out of having your chat used in model training data altogether. I think there are more things they give us that we can delete our information, the better off we all are. So that's number 2. Let's move on to number 3. Emotions reveal extra context. Well, yeah, you would think that you would know that. Most people are likely used to a certain amount of disclosure when they're on the internet. Even a Google search can contain sensitive information about a person's life. A conversation with a chatbot, though, adds even more information and context. A search query is much less revealing, especially about your emotional state, than a whole chat transcript. Yeah, that's true. King said, comparing a search for something like a suicide prevention hotline, yeah, that tells them a lot, to a 1,000-line transcript detailing a person's innermost thoughts and feelings. All right, number 4. Humans might be reading, yeah, and again, you don't know where it's going, so of course this is very possible. AI is quite famously not human. For some people, that concept might make them more comfortable sharing sensitive information, but just because there's no human typing back doesn't mean one might not be able to read your message. It's very true. King noted that some platforms use humans for reinforcement learning, where systems are trained in part based on human inputs. I think they all use humans in some type of training for the large language models. For example, if you flag a chatbot response, a worker somewhere in the world might check it in an effort to improve the model. As King said, it's not always clear when something you type might end up being reviewed by a human. It's very true. 5. Policy is lagging. I wouldn't doubt it. What makes any of these points especially tricky is the lack of regulation around how AI companies store sensitive data. And our politicians want less regulation. I think we should all want more. The California Consumer Privacy Act, for example, has certain requirements around how data like medical records needs to be treated differently from other forms of data. This is one place I totally agree with California. In this regard, the AI regard, they probably are getting it more right than most places. But regulation in the U.S. may differ from state to state, and at the federal level, well, there is no regulation, and there ought to be. So, what to do if you've said too much? If you find yourself cringing because you may have already disclosed too much to a chatbot, you may have a few options. King recommended deleting old conversations, which you can do, and personalizations you might have made for the future. Whether these steps remove your information from the training data, King said researchers just don't know. Yeah, my guess is you can delete your stuff from training data, but somewhere they're going to keep it. Each platform has its own policies and methods for handling personal data, which may require some digging into. Here are links to resources from some of the major players: OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, Google, Gemini, Microsoft, and Copilot. So a very good article bringing up points maybe everybody hasn't thought of, but we probably should all be thinking of. So, no new comments since the beginning of the show, but if anybody has anything they want to type in the comments or bring up, now is the time to do it. Didn't get Ted this week, but there's always hope for next week. But if people don't want to put anything in the chat and bring anything up special, then we will tell you we will see you next week. Glad for everybody that showed up tonight. Please spread it around, retweet, send it to your friends, and tell anybody who might be interested to come in every Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So I hope everybody has a blessed week and a great weekend. And as I tell you every week, we all do better when we love each other. So, see you next week, folks.